Hotep, everybody. Uncle Josh Chanel. Assalamu alaikum. Peace. What's happening? Welcome to the Jah and Kev show. You know who we are. I'm Jah. This is Kev. I know I say it every time we get together, but hey, we like to do this broadcast because we always bring you subjects that's relevant and they're concise, and we just need to talk about something tonight. But I want to start off by saying the name of this broadcast tonight is Becoming Them, Losing Us, the Cost of Assimilation. So we're going to be talking about what did it cost us to integrate, to belong. So Kev put a post out and he said that he couldn't wait. So since he can't wait, I'm going to let him jump into this thing and I'm going to see where I can fit in because I know he's going to deliberate tonight.
No, we're going to discuss this. This is going to be a discussion, and it's going to be a real discussion because I think, unbeknownst to my co-host, I really don't agree that integration did anything bad to us.
Mm-hmm.
So we had that discussion with, and maybe he can convince me otherwise. So anybody that thinks, otherwise than what the title of the show is, y'all chime in. Y'all could call the show at 361-405-6111. Give us your opinion. Give us your impression of what you think integration did to the Black community.
Okay.
This was your baby, man, and I love your baby. I'm gonna tell you that, man.
Yeah, I know you even dressed this baby because you started off the block saying you don't think integration did much for us. What do you mean when you say that, Kevin? Let me get in on that.
I'm gonna say this.
Okay.
I think integration revealed a lot about us.
Okay.
So I think that what happens in a pro-Black and Afrocentric community, I think we have something called I'm gonna say availability biases, and it's another thing that we have is confirmation biases, and I'm going to get through both of those things. But I think what it is with availability biases, that's a psychological thing. We're saying something that availability is like the things that you recall or remember in your brain is things that have sensations to them, and things that make you feel good. Things that's scary to you or funny. You remember those incidents over any other thing. And I think what we do is romanticize about us before integration. And I think we look at the bad things about integration because another group I want to say is Black nationalists. They, of course, will be against integration because that's against their theory.
Right.
So they're going to look at all the negative things that they think integration has done with the Black community. And I'm going to say it's not integration itself. It's a reflection of us.
Well, then maybe we're on the same page because I'm sitting here with my guards up. I'm ready to throw blows with this guy because what you just said there is the same way I'm coming because we have to look at it in its context. We have to be honest about what happened to us and how it was used against us. And then we also have our responsibility because we oftentimes talk about integration negatively, but then, we have a responsibility. We had one and we still have one,
right? Not
to sit around and bellyache and murmur and groan and complain and not do anything to change our condition. So in that light, I 100% agree with you. But, Kev, integration, it goes, and we could talk about it from different perspectives, but I want to talk about what it cost us. In other words, as a people, when we integrated, after the 1954 Brown versus the Board of Education, when we were able to go to their schools and all that, they said it was unconstitutional to be separated. And then with the 1964 Civil Rights passage, where we can go to their restaurants, because, before we couldn't do that. And to all those young people that are out there now, you may not have heard it said like this, but at one time we were separated. In other words, white people had their own businesses. They wouldn't allow blacks in. If you tried to come in, you would be beaten or spit at or hung or just done wrong. So we couldn't go to things like that. We couldn't go to their schools. But now, because of segregation, now we're able to do that. And so what I'm trying to get to is we have to look at how some of that, it bothered our psyche because we were so busy in one breath wanting to be into mainstream society, but then it cost us some things, Gail.
All right, and I'm glad you brought up the Brown versus the Board of Education. That was an act that made Plessy versus Ferguson, which is separate but equal. Plessy versus Ferguson came into effect when the Supreme Court ruled that having separate but equal facilities and everything was legal. It wasn't unconstitutional. So that made segregation constitutional. But what preceded that, I believe Plessy versus Ferguson was in 1896.
That's right.
Right. So for all those years, we dealt with Plessy versus Ferguson. But what preceded that, what I like about this show, let me say this.
Okay.
Is what I like is it made me ask myself questions.
Okay.
Because initially, I would say I would hear these activists, or I hear Dr. whomever.
Okay.
I don't want to put anybody, but they say, yeah, integration hurt us and integration hurt us. And I hear people echo that. But what it did, so I felt that, you know, that was that availability of biases. I'm like, yeah, this is the information that makes me feel good. And the reason I bring up how I felt initially is because I felt the same way, because this is what I was hearing from the people that I associate with.
Right. Like
so but then when you called me and said, hey, man, I want to talk about this, I was like, okay, yeah, and I already had a way that I felt.
I hear you.
But then what it made me do was say, okay, well, why do I feel like that? And so what it did, it made me do was ask the questions. What's the good points and bad points that came out of integration?
Right.
So does that good outweigh the bad, or do the bad outweigh the good? And then it made me look at us.
That's true. That's true. And you know, that was a very interesting challenge that you said, because I think I would phrase it this way. I would phrase it, what did we allow integration to do to us? You know, what did we allow it? Because, you know, we wanted to, if we look back in that time frame, yeah, we live in a country, we pay our taxes, we do everything that everyone else does. So, of course, we wanted to be within the mainstream. But what did that cost us? It cost us, according to some of my information, it cost us the powers that we should have had to be superior as opposed to inferior. In other words, we took on this inferior attitude based on the fact that this is one of the ways that it hurt us, because instead of us going into it saying, okay, we had our own Black businesses in many instances, we had our own Black organizations. So then when we integrated, a lot of times what we did was it dissolved. Right. So we didn't keep what we had. We didn't prolong it. And I know that there was forces against us. But at the same time, you know, we have to look at ourselves. What did we allow to happen to us so that now we go around saying the integration killed us? Our schools, okay? Right. We start going to white schools, learning their history, their culture, their everything. And yet we didn't think about how we can preserve ours and to teach our kids the things that's going to help them out in society.
Right. And man, you just hit us with a lot right there. I'm going to say this also. Integration has never happened in America. True integration. What we call integration, Integration Act, because to integrate two groups together means that they become whole in equal part, in equality. And we also, like you said, the Civil Rights Act, many Civil Rights Act that came after the Brown versus the Board of Education, proved that we were never really equally part of this country. So that the true word of integration never really happened. So this American integration movement is something that we're talking about, which we've never gained equality.
Right. So it's a pseudo integration.
Yeah, pseudo integration.
Right.
So what I was talking about with the Plessy versus Ferguson, like integration had to happen. If not, you got to tell me how we could have eluded it, because what preceded Plessy versus Ferguson was the Revenue Act, and I believe that was 1861. And what the Revenue Act means, the government started taxing those that made revenue. So we were making a revenue after the Civil War. We had the Black Wall Street and all this stuff. So the government, we were paying taxes to the government, which means taxation means you got to represent.
That's right.
So what the Plessy versus Ferguson did, it said, okay, yeah, we could represent y'all, but we're not going to do it so that y'all can integrate. Like it's going to be segregation. It's going to be separate but equal, but it wasn't separate but equal, because they gave the white institutions more.
Right.
They gave white. If you look at the water fountains, the white water fountains look a lot better. The white people didn't just build that themselves, and we didn't come in and build our own water fountains. The governing body built that, and they built ours piss poor, and theirs was pristine. So that's how the government. And what we were fighting for is like, no, y'all got to do the same for us that we're doing for y'all, especially if you're taking my tax money.
Right.
You got to represent us. So that preceded Plessy versus Ferguson, but they said separate but equal, and it still wasn't equal anyway. No. So we had to basically integrate. We started saying, okay, the government has got to look out for us. We could do our own thing. And this is the other side of the integration with Black people. Do you prefer segregation? Segregation, tell me how we were better when we were segregated. You know, how was our facilities better? It is some pros and cons.
Right.
It's pros and cons.
Right. So that's good, because I think it also changed our mindset, because we wanted to be accepted. We wanted to be accepted into a culture, into a society that they did not want us, period. So basically what they did was they took the things that they were good at and they used those things against us and made us become a part of what they were doing. Because a lot of, like I heard before integration, I heard we had our own cab companies, you know, we had our own bus companies, we had a lot of things, you know,
out of necessity.
Exactly. But then when we integrated, even when it came to sports, I hear the Negro League, the baseball Negro League, you know, they drew 80,000 people, you know, but then when Jackie Robinson and other people went into the Major League Baseball, a lot of the blacks went because it was more money, they were more visible, and we understand all that. So then everything diluted, and now it's like Martin Luther King said something I think I want to revisit. He said that before he passed away, they asked him about this whole idea of integration. He says, I believe something, it goes something like this. He says, I believe I'm integrating my people into a burning house. It's something to that effect. So he saw that. He saw something that was going on at that time.
I think that that goes also in the confirmation biases that I brought up earlier. We tend to look at things that confirm our beliefs. It's a movie that Denzel played in. It's called, I watched it like this weekend past. And it's called Roman Israel Esquire, where he plays a lawyer.
Yeah.
But in the movie, it's just a quote that he had about his teacher, a professor that was teaching him and a law firm lawyer. And the teacher said, I believe this because of my beliefs. I believe because of my beliefs. That's confirmation biases. We tend to gravitate and give more weight to the things that steer us towards what we already believe. And a lot of things like, okay, Martin Luther King is telling us this. We love Martin Luther King, yet this is good. We need to be sitting here doing this. Malcolm X and the nationalists were telling us the opposite. The hell with their establishment.
Right.
Now, somewhere in there, some people can say, well, the hell with their establishments, but I should legally be able to go there. It gives us a choice. That's what it is, a choice. Now, my thing is a reflection on us, is because what we choose to do is choose theirs over ours. So that's on us.
Yeah.
They say that adversity reveals character, right? And I say also freedom of choice reveals discipline.
Wow.
So when you're able to choose whatever it is you want to choose, and you choose to go the wrong way, that's not on those that's giving you the choice. It's on you. That's a reflection on us and what we choose to do. We let our stuff close, and because we felt their stuff was better, and that's a bad mentality to have.
And I want to piggyback off of that and say kudos, ditto to you, because in our struggle, man, you know, the struggle that we had in this country, and we still have, but in our struggle to integrate, we want to sit at their table. So we sat at their table, but we forgot the strength of our own, building our own. Yeah. And you just said that, because we wanted to be so much like them. And what we did was we just a lot of us did. We just forgot. We forgot how to build. In other words, we started depending on them for everything. Right. And to this day, a lot of us still do that, because if white people don't tell us what to do and how to do it, when to do it, where to do it, why to do it, we feel like we're inferior. And that's some of the things that we're talking about that really hurt us in that way.
Yeah, the cultural simulation. We turned our back on our own things, and that's on us, because other groups didn't necessarily do that. You know, the Jews wanted rights here, and they still got they built more on their own. You could still be, you know, legally integrated, but you could have a mind of separatism. Yeah. You know, think of your own and how you're going to do your own. We're in San Antonio, Texas, heavy Hispanic population. They went through the same thing. Brothers that we know, brother Andar and our brother Elijah, they had a film, and it's called Walk on the River. You know, and it's an excellent film about the history of Black San Antonio. And with also in there, the Hispanics was going through the segregation also. Like you said, we had taxi cabs. Now, you people always think of Black Wall Street. It was pockets all around America. I guarantee you, if you have somebody to look into the history of the city that you live in, the blacks at that time, because we were segregated, we had our own something. Because we had to. We couldn't ride in their taxi cabs. We had our own schools. We did things on our own. But as soon as they opened the floodgates, we jetted out. But I'm saying San Antonio because you look here today, you still could go on the south side or the west side, which is the most heavily populated Hispanic, and you're going to see Hispanic businesses, small Hispanic businesses, whether it's tire shops, whether it's law firms or whatever. You're going to see that because they didn't leave their own.
Right.
They said, okay, yeah, we can go to your Walmarts and we could go to this, but we also are going to.
That's true. And one thing that I see with us, many of us, is that this assimilation, it creates a self-hatred in a sense. In other words, we want to be so much like other people and we never will be. So we start hating the very fact that we are who we are because we're not like them. We will never be like them. We want to look like them. We want to, as we say, our vernacular. You know, if I say, well, Kevin, you know, today we're going, well, Jah, you're talking white. So see, everything that we aspire is what their culture has given to us. And if we don't mimic or assimilate them, then somehow we feel as though, you know, we're less than. And that's a terrible mindset. And we're some of the only people, I know with our condition and our history, that will do that. We'll hate ourselves because we don't have a sharp nose, or because we don't look a certain way, or if our hair is in a certain way, or if we don't dress a certain way, if we don't make enough money, then we associate that with making it. And that's a terrible mindset that many of us have picked up.
It's a quote from JFK. He said, conformity is the jailer of freedom, and the enemy of growth. So this is what conform. We wanted to conform. We wanted to be a part of. Therefore, we conformed to their standards, and then we left. And it killed our growth as a people, as individuals. Like everything that we do now is of our choice. Just because we can go in their shop don't mean that we have to. You just say, okay, legally you can't stop me, but I'm still going to do my own. And I see this with the HBCUs. I see this with the smaller private schools like you have. We have a choice to go to school. Even if your kids are older, we got a choice to fund your school to help to see the big picture, and the long run, and saying that this is something for. I might not have kids, but I want to support this, you know. But this is on our own. This is a reflection of us. So it's not integration's fault because there are great things that came. You tell me W.E.B. Du Bois' education at Harvard was meaningless or bad. No, we had integration means that we had access to better facilities. The NBA, the NFL. And like you brought up the sports, the Negro League, they wasn't getting paid like they could have for their talents. And that's because of the lopsidedness in this country, the economic. They wasn't going to be on TV. Right. And we didn't own any television stations. But what we should have did was start trying to do that. If we could look at what they're doing, learn from what they're doing, I could go to your classrooms, but then I'm going to come and have a mindset, I got to bring this back home.
We dropped the ball, many of us, and we still to this day, when I say we dropped the ball, it's just exactly what you're saying. Instead of looking at integration and saying, okay, what can I add to it to help my people? We look at it and we complain and we gripe, and it's like every time you look around, you hear these lectures about how integration was terrible and what it did to us and all of these truths. But then you never see those people doing anything positive to uplift the community so the integration wouldn't be as bad. So we argue and complain all the time. Well, you know, man, we live in a system and all of that. But what are you doing in the system? It's hard to get us to come together to do some positive things to help the people that live in the system. But we like to complain about the system because the system is going to be the system until we leave this earth.
For those that don't understand what we're talking about, I want to give an analogy. That's all right. If you have this young guy, let's say Kevin, and he's living in his parents' home. His parents is disciplined. You know, they do your homework. They're doing everything. He has great grades. He goes to college because he gets a scholarship to go to college. He has a job while he's at college, or while he's in high school, he has a job. And while he's in college, his first couple of years, he has the same job. He's growing in the job. So now what he does is he decides to leave home. And now he's calling in for work sometime. Now his grades in college is starting to, because now what he's doing, because he's on his own, he can party like he wants to. He can have company as late as he wants to. So now he doesn't feel like getting up and going sometimes, so he calls in. So now he loses his job. Now his grades are starting to drop. Is that because he wanted independence? No, it's not. Leaving home is not a bad thing. It's because at home, his mama would say, hey, get up sometimes, get up. Don't you have to go to school? Don't you have to go to work?
Right.
And it was people that was giving him a discipline. So when you leave out and you got those choices to do what you want to do, it reveals your discipline. He had a choice to get up on his own and say, this is what got me here and this is what I need to do. But now because that discipline is not forcing you to do this, now it's going to reveal your own discipline.
Wow.
That's why I said freedom of choice reveals discipline within someone. You could still go to theirs, but you don't have to.
Right.
You could choose whatever you want to choose, and you should have that discipline. Especially, why would we want to be conforming and getting in bed with these people that has treated us like the way they was treating us when we were segregated, and before that in slavery?
Wow.
You should say, yeah, you can let me in whether you want to or not, but I don't really want to be there.
That's the choice that we make because integration has done this to many of us. It has disconnected us from our roots. In other words, we don't want to be who we are. You see, we want everything to be another way because we don't like what we see. Not only that, when you start talking about people like W.E.B. Du Bois and other people, we say, well, why do you got to always talk about that black stuff?
Right.
See, why do you got to bring that up all the time? Well, the point of it is because they have been disconnected. Those people that think like that, they think this is a multicultural world where no one sees anything. But, every day when you take your money to these banks, these people take this money and they go to their banks. And when you look at their accounts, it doesn't say white or black. It says their family and their relatives. And that's how they continue to grow economically. But again, many of us still have that mindset that, like you mentioned, we have been given a bill of bad goods, and we still believe it to this day. And I'm surprised no one has called because this is a discussion that everyone should have something to say, especially if you're 30, 40, 50, and you have some information that you can talk to us about. What did integration cost us?
Right. And that's what I say. What is it, the good parts and the bad parts of integration? There's a lot of good things that we could get. I mean, it's better facilities. I understand that. It's better. And my thing is, okay, go to their schools. Some of us stay at our own. Go to their schools and learn what you can learn, and then come back and teach them.
But don't change now.
Yeah, don't change. Don't go there and conform. And try to become them.
There you go.
Go there with your mentality and say, okay, I'm going to go here. I'm going to go here and see how your store runs and operates. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to build my own and operate it in that fashion if that's what I desire for us, by us.
Yeah, and just like some of the music, I want to just take it a little step further because, we say the CIA, the Illuminati, and all these secret groups, they poison us. They keep giving us these bad images. They keep showing all this stuff. This is negative. This is the system. This is what integration did. But we don't have to be a part of that if we choose not to.
Right.
So nobody's making you do that.
Exactly. I think what it does with the complaint about integration is more so a complaint that should be made about us. But I think it's allowing us to let us off the hook.
And what do you mean by that, Kevin? I got you. You're the bad guy today, huh? Let's talk, man. What's going on?
You look at that. You look at integration, and you say, well, how things change that integration. But like I said, when you have free will, you can watch what somebody is doing. You can see what we did, and that shows us. Because, like I said earlier, it's like adversity reveals character, and we was going through a lot of adversity, and it made us feel good. We resilient, and we all this, and then when we get the opportunity to do what we want to do, and you see what we did, then that gives you a bad taste. So it got to be blaming somebody else. It's like you were forced to be amongst each other.
Right.
It's like you were forced to have a black community.
Yes,
you were forced to go to the black stores because they wasn't accepting you in there. But as soon as they opened the door, you ran. It's like a brother being with a sister. Yeah, baby, I love you. Then as soon as they say, okay, it's okay to have white women, then you go on. You know what I'm saying? It's because you can do that and you do what you want to do, and now that looks bad on us.
Wow, that's good. And don't allow this integration, even today. When we contemporize it and talk about today's standards, don't let it cause psychological harm and confusion because it does that. In other words, don't depend on white institutions to give you everything. Don't depend on everything that's Eurocentric, although there are some things in it that we need. But don't think that if it's not Eurocentric, it's And that psychology is still to this day, man. Integration, we've allowed it to treat us that way. And now we feel like we don't want to watch the Jah and Kev show because we're too black, too African Americans, too whatever you want to call us. But you see two Europeans that's saying some whack, but you want to watch them because they're European. That's that psychology again.
Right. And this is something about growth right here. This is a discussion that we need to reflect on and let it reflect on the moves that we made so we could change the way that we move in the future. You know, we should have these type of discussions about, instead of just accepting, oh yeah, integration was bad. Yeah, integration was bad. No, I mean, where you could hypothesize about where we would have been, but it's like I said, integration had to happen.
Yeah.
If not, only way that it wouldn't happen if they stopped taxing us. You know, because I want representation. You taking my money.
Exactly.
You do what you're supposed to do. Build up my streets, give to my schools, whatever you do, and then you could still integrate. Like I said, be segregated within your mind. You could be a black nationalist and saying not going to another country or having your own, but having your own community where you want to see black. I want to see black stores lined up.
Yeah,
all around. Like I want to be able to say, this is the part of the city I live in, and this is us. So I can spend my dollars there.
Yes, sir.
We want to have people, kids that know trades, learn trades instead of going to school, being something that we think they want us to be. And then when we go knock on the door for a job, they're not answering the door. So you should be able to go and do anything that you want to do, how you want to do it, but as long as you have the mindset that you're doing it for your people.
Yeah, that's true. And, you know, some people would say that assimilation keeps black people powerless and it doesn't allow us to control our destiny. I totally disagree with that 100%. If we allow it to, of course.
Yeah.
But if someone's kicking you in the teeth, are you going to keep crying, oh, you're kicking me in the teeth? You know, you're not right. You're going to get your behind up and do something about it. And that's what many of our problems would happen to be today, because when it comes to integration, we just play that one side. And see, we're giving the whole album. We give them side A and side B. And they don't want to hear side B because they've been so brainwashed into thinking that there's nothing I can do. The white man got me down. My hands are tied. I'll never do something. And that's why we are in the condition that we're in, because a lot of it is because of our own negligence to do some things that we should be doing.
And even if you think of it, you simplify it with sports. There's nothing wrong with being in the NBA or NFL, but in that process, if you don't, because it's going to reveal how they feel about you and the way they treat you. So you can say, okay, yeah, I'm here doing this, but then you know what? I'm gonna work on that. You know, I'm gonna work on, even if I like they always say, rob Peter to pay Paul. You know, you could go to work for them and turn around and do something for your own off of that money you make it and help us build, because it's not about what you're doing actually right now. It's building for the future. So I could go work for the firm or the company I'm working for, but my mindset should be giving back to us in the long run.
That's a mature mindset, Kev. That's very mature, because many people would see that and call you a name. See, will call you a name because they don't realize that you have to live in a society and you have to be effective in society for your people. And the only way you can do that is, like you're saying, make sure you get the cheddar and you take the cheddar and you do something with it to help your community. And don't let this cause division within the African American community like assimilation has. In other words, you live on that side of town, you live by a lot of Europeans, and I don't. So I'm angry with you. So when I see you, they say, who is that? Oh, that's that Ian, man. He live up there, you know what I'm saying? He think he's better than everybody. No, he doesn't think. Now, some of them do, but in this case, that's not how you are, see? But because of my mindset, well, integration, God, you're my job. And no, see, I'm lazy. And a lot of times I don't want to go out there and fight and work hard like you did and do what I have to do to make sure that I'm a benefit to my society. But I want to sit back and point my finger at you and complain about you and look at your skin color and say, oh, you uppity because you're a certain color. Shade. These things have got to stop, man.
Yeah, and it's like we look at people that speak on certainly proper English. I'm saying that. Say, oh, he's talking white. You know, and that mindset, that just reflects our mindset.
Yeah.
I don't care how a person talks. I mean, I think Farrakhan can articulate himself. I think Malcolm X was able to articulate himself. Martin Luther King was able to articulate yourself. And if you're being articulate, then that's not a negative thing.
No.
So, or not, and I say some of us, we get better jobs so we could go send our kids to better schools. Now, that's a two-way thing. Like the better schools, you're doing that now. And I can't blame them. I can't knock anyone that wants their kids to be in a safe environment. Because if you go back to our community, you're going to see all these things that they place in our role. And my thing is, why are we allowed to place it? Clean up your own neighborhood, but you can't clean it up by yourself. So sometimes you got to go away and come back and do something in your community. You got to use the resources that's here to fix things there.
Yeah.
Because trying to fix, sometimes it's not the best schooling, or we're not even going to have the best information that's going to help us fix things in our community. But the thing is, don't go here and say this is nice and I'm gonna stay here.
Right.
You can't turn your back on if you got that type of mindset. You can't turn your back on our community. I would like to see a lot of these celebrities buy up housing and buy up land or something like that for things that, like some kind of goal and a plan to do something like that.
Okay, well, and you mentioned earlier, I want to ask you this, because I want you to give me some more information, and I totally concur with you. I just want you to get a little bit more into, do you think that many of us, will play that one string about integration is wrong, integration destroyed us, we will never be any good, we should have stayed separate? Will we play that string until we leave this earth, or will we progress somewhat to say, you know what, let me really look at this thing and see what can happen to make this a better world?
I would like to think that we can or will eventually do that, but I think like having discussions about where we're at and being realistic about where we're at and what we've been doing will help to bring that into fruition. The positivity of having the discussion. Like, we could be out there totally disagreeing, but we're giving you a different perspective. And you're giving a different perspective than I thought you may give me. I thought you was gonna be like, nah, man, the hell with that. And I was
see how he judges me. He always judges me like that. But
this was your baby. I'm like, man, and this is two brothers talking about things that are realistic that we should, even if no matter what the subject is, just the vision of being able to have a conversation about something deeper than the surface.
Right.
Yeah, we could have had a 5-minute show saying, yeah, immigration bad, look at what happened and this is what happened to us. But no, it's bigger than that, it's deeper than that. It goes a lot deeper than that. And sometimes you got to look at us. And sometimes you got to look at those, even if like you said, Martin Luther King made that comment about getting us into a burning building. Why? You got to think, well, why was he saying that? Because he bought into the power. He wanted us to have the power.
He saw what we were doing.
He saw with all the efforts what he was fighting against, and it's like, well, maybe if he would have lived longer, he would have been able to elaborate.
But see, I want to take that and run with it a little further, because I think that was the beginning. That was the starting part. So if he said that about the burning house, he was afraid that he was integrating his people into a burning house. But since he's been gone, you would think that, okay, the house is burning, let's put the fire out, and now let's start doing some positive things. Let's take this bull by the horn as a people and say, okay, no, we're going too far. And the pro-Black community, many of them tried this, but a lot of them weren't listened to, because at that point, a lot of us didn't look at integration for what it was worth. They wanted to be like other people. So they gave everything they had. They distanced themselves even from our own communities, because they looked at us a certain way, because they're saying, hey, we're integrated in a sense, but now I've lost who I am as a person. So I want to be somebody else. And that is really something that hurts us and continues to hurt us.
And I would like to look into what are we as a people, as a community, because we are people that's fighting for our identity, and we have been fighting for an identity. So when you're saying who are we lost ourselves. But I'm wondering, who are we? What's that image?
What I'm saying is we've lost the ability to be African people who live in America, who have been subjugated for all these years, to define ourselves, to also do things for our communities, to bring up, like you mentioned, with not just the schools, but the businesses, to work together to support one another. We've lost that in a large way. Not everybody, because I wouldn't sit here and say that there's nobody that's doing it. You tell me often, you got your money in an African-American bank. That's a beautiful thing. But a lot of us, we don't have that mindset. So I'm saying many of us have lost the ability to love who we are as a people, to look into our history, to look at our ancestors, and to say, we've got a long way to go. So we just thrown it all away because we're integrated now. So we say, forget it. The hell with everything else. I'm an American now. Don't worry about calling me an African American. Don't even call me Black. I am an American. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and it's a lot of us that has that mentality, whether we like it or not, or we want to. And even it's the negative. We think that the negativity is being anti-system, and that's the younger people taking it. I'm a thug, I'm a gang, and it's like, because you don't have the rules of the establishment. or the discipline, because you're thinking you're getting away from the discipline, but you're not. You're running so far away that it's even negative to our community. You want to be a thug, a gangster, or whatever this is, a person in the streets. You hear it in the music, and that's the music that's selling to our younger people. Like we talked about the N-word and everything that's not accepted in corporate America. You're being anti-corporate America in a negative way that's not pro-Black community. And you could be anti-corporate America, working corporate America, being anti-corporate America because you're pro-Black community, and corporate America is not for the Black community.
Exactly.
But you can go there and get the education to get everything you need, the tools that you need from that shed to build up your own community, and even come back and talk to them and say, this is how they, you know,
that's true.
What they think about us. This is how they're doing this. But the way that the younger people are doing it, they're doing it without a discipline, and they think being anti-establishment is being smoking this and drinking this and party hardy and the hell with going, you know, having to clean whatever you think corporate America is. You think that that's the way to rebel against, but you're rebelling in the way that they want you to rebel.
Exactly.
You're helping corporate America bring down our community. That's what they want.
And I want to give you a perfect illustration, because I talk to some people and they say things about integration and how it destroyed us. And I say, in what way? Well, it destroyed our culture, you know. We don't get a chance to look into what we've done and how we're strong and that and that. And I'm going, okay, then why don't you do it yourself? Why don't you learn it and teach your own children? Why don't you teach your own people? Why don't you get together with people who are starving because they don't know, because they have not been taught? And you take the leadership and then you say, okay, this is what corporate America, this is what the school system, this is what the businesses are doing to us. But let me show you an alternate route so that you can be a little bit more whole, as opposed to sitting around all week crying about something that you can do something about.
Yeah, if you could see it, then you could fix it. If you could tell me what's wrong with it, then tell me what you could do to make it right. You know, if you know what their plan is and what their goals is, our history shows us one bad thing about integration is we allowed them to school us on our history. I can look up the good about integration. I can look up the bad about integration. I can sit there and weigh what I'm seeing and saying was, now integration can't be a bad thing at all. Integration is a bad thing, and it's based on there's causation and there's correlation. The correlation is because we got integration. The correlation is what happened with integration, but that didn't make it happen. That was us. That's our choice. The causation means that this happened, A happened, or A caused B to happen. No, it didn't cause us to happen. We chose for the things to do. It's a correlation, and it's bad things that came with that correlation. But the integration is not the problem. The integration is that we choose to conform and try that route. And maybe because we made it sound so romantic, you know, like I said, the availability of biasness is, you know, he's available to us. We love Martin Luther King, his dream speech, black boys and black girls holding hands, but that ain't what they want. So that's what we fighting for, to get this and to have this kumbaya with somebody that don't want us there. And if we are there, they're doing things to cripple us and to make sure that we're not on equal grounds there. So we could love Martin, and we could say, well, you know, maybe he just had the wrong idea, because he should have been saying something different. Maybe we should have went a different way or followed somebody else that was saying something different. But that was what we had. We had that biasness in our mind, that peace, you know, along with the religion, you know, the religion, turn the other cheek and all this stuff like this. So this is availability of a bias, because that religious belief of turning the other cheek was good. This is God-like. And he's coming here teaching peace. That's God-like. He's a minister. That's God-like. He talks in a romantic way. That's God-like. So those options was given to us, and those are the options that we wanted to take. So we have to sit back and say, well, is this still right?
Right. Because we should have looked at those options, and we should have seen, even though Martin Luther King came the way he did, which we respect and we love him to death. Okay, that was during that time, and that was back then. Okay, so as we continue to see things progress, we should have taken that step like most people do, and they kind of curtail things to make sure that they fit to the best of their people and not just live on a dream 40, 50, 60, 70 years later, and we're still talking about we have a dream. And so that's the fault of us for not taking advantage of that.
At one point, we should wake up to see the reality like he started. He saw that. 60 years ago. He was like a burning house. Like I'm telling them to go to hell, basically. And I didn't see it. I thought that I could win these people over with affection. And you saw that you couldn't. And like that same conversation that he was giving, it wasn't a speech. It was an interview. He was talking about they telling us to tighten up our bootstraps, but they take our laces away. You know, he's talking about, he's seeing America for what it is, but then we allowed them to keep. They kept selling us the dream. They took that Martin Luther King and they minimized it so we couldn't see it. So now we got to be able to be mature enough and say, look at what happened and say, maybe we went the wrong way. Maybe he just didn't see things, and maybe he started seeing things, and maybe, so now we went the wrong way. So what? We could double back. You don't keep going.
Yeah, we're so credulous, man. We believe things and we don't like to change. A lot of people see that there's sometimes things happen and you have to change for the better. But some of us, and I say a lot of us, especially some of us older people, we don't care what you and I are saying, because Martin Luther King said that, and we're so infatuated with him. We're not going to change our tune. And this is why we're in the condition that we're in, because we're so headstrong and we're not going to change because Dr. King said it. And 70 years later, because King said it, we're still going to do it, even though we're going in the wrong direction in many instances, instead of saying that was good for them. But now we're in a new time and a new day. We got to make sure we have some strategies that's going to help us as a people, as opposed to just falling back on what they said. We shouldn't be talking about Dr. King that often. Now, as a leader, as a savant back in the day, we can mention his name, but we should be talking about us. What have we done, okay?
What we gonna do to make things right? Now he's not here to us in any type.
It ain't like he was dying yesterday.
So we can look at the track record. That's what maturity does. You look at, like I said, if Kevin left home, lost his job, he got to look at why. If his grades dropped in school, he got to look at why. You know, it's not my parents' fault. It's not that it was, leaving home is a bad thing. You got to look at, okay, this is where I've been. This is how am I going to correct the ship? How am I going to correct what I've done wrong? Or how can I fix things from here on out? You can't sit there with your head down and be like, man, they got rid of me. I'm mad at this. You got to look at yourself. They're going to keep slapping. Well, whether you turn the cheek or not. So you got to at one point say, you know what? It's time for me to learn some self-defense.
I'm going to tell you what another thing integration did that we haven't touched on, but I want to hit it. Integration has made some of us fearful. It's made us afraid. And this is what I mean when I say that, Kev. I mean that we won't talk about the truth the way we are now. Because when we get around some people, certain types of people, Europeans, and someone asks us a question like, how did integration hurt us? Instead of talking about how it really hurt us and how we can help ourselves, we're so afraid to say something. You know how at back home where you behind closed doors, we talk loud. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? This is the way it is. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then when we get out to the very people that we're talking about, they say, what you going to do? Oh, I ain't going to do anything, man. I ain't going to do anything. So this is how we are, see? So behind closed doors, we talk this talk. And this is what I mean by we don't do what we should do by now, and all of us are to blame for it as a group of people. We should be much further down the road. I'm at fault, you're at fault, all of us are at fault. But see, we don't want to take the blame. We want to sit back and talk about Dr. King, we want to talk about Malcolm X, and we're going to die, but yet the condition that they were in, we're in the same condition. Oppression, racism, sexism, misogyny.
It changes the form, but it's the same beast. And we got to recognize that. And we could say vote, we could do not like the thing where people say, well, vote. And I'm not against voting because we should be represented in some, because we're being taxed, like I said, with the Revenue Act. Once they started taxing us, and then we need government representation. And I just can't have the belief that you're gonna do right by me. But I'm going to vote the way I'm if I want to vote, cast my vote, but I can't be under the illusion that this is going to save us. And we got to save ourselves. Save ourselves. And I saw something on the Black Panther page, the new Black Panther Party, and they said, we're not against voting. And that shocked me. I'm like, what? Angela Davis, no, but she's probably not against voting. She's still here. But I was like, we knew what they, and it's like, and they gave an explanation. I said, okay, I accept that. But they're not under the and they're not under the delusion that the voting is going to change Now, and what I think we should do, we should groom candidates that we want, groom our own candidates with the mindset that we want, and have them representing us locally in our district too, in our bigger districts, and then hopefully maybe if we can't get you to be the mayor of the city we're in, maybe we need to go to a smaller city and have our own, and have some type of goal, some type of plan in order to reach our goals. What's your If we ask people, what is your goals for the Black community? You could say your self goal. And somebody will say, well, I want to, we do this with kids. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a fireman or whatever. But at some point, they get out of that or whatever. They look more realistic. But we as a people should have a goal. And if you ask us, what is your goal for the Black community? See what they say.
The agenda. That's what it is. Everyone has an agenda but us. And the thing of it is when it comes to politicians, we vote them in office, and they don't do what they're supposed to do, you get them out of office. But see, if I vote for you and you lie to me and tell me what you're going to do, instead of me getting you out of office and making sure that every day your phone ringing and we're coming up there letting you know you are no good, you're rotten to the core, we're going to sit there and say, well, that's how he is. Well, ain't no one perfect, So we make excuses, and this scoundrel keeps raking us over the coals. And then when it's time to get rid of him or replace him, then we come up with this crowd. Well, that's a Black man. You shouldn't, don't get him out of office. He's Black.
I'm going to say this, man. In the military, they had something in this cup, the peer pressure. And they enforced that. If one person did something wrong, everybody paid for it. And there's a point in time that you got to say, well, this person represents your party and he did something wrong. Your party's going to pay for it. I don't care if we vote independent or we vote the other parties, just to send a message that you can't. So your party's going to put pressure on you. Man, did you lie? Why are you lying? You're hurting all of us. So this is my thing is y'all a party. And what we do, we vote for the party regardless. So the party don't hold their individuals accountable for lying to us or doing whatever. I don't care if you vote independent or do something and go through the 4 years and going through 4 years now with this orange idiot of doing the things, and we're not dying. It's not going to go through it and let them know. But what it is, it's like, okay, we just got to get more people to vote for this. But no, you tell them, to me, if we say, you know what, now we're not voting. We're not voting because y'all are not holding up here. If you had a chance and you lied to us. You had a chance, you're not looking out for our best interest. Maybe we need to have some type of strategy at the polls and stuff and vote however we want to vote, or vote for something or do whatever, but to show them that y'all just not whoring our vote. We're not just going to be whores for your vote. And I'm saying, and this could be for everything. I don't care if it's education, whatever you want to do. We have people that we like, and then we have people that we put above us. And then when they do something, and it's more about them than it is about our schools, our kids, and our future.
We're so polarized now as a people. When I say that, we're so headstrong into certain people's corners. In other words, and I don't really talk too much about those who are into religion, because I understand, but just for illustration purposes, I want to say it this way. There are many ministers in white and Black, but in this subject I'm talking about, there are many Black ministers that are not doing what they're supposed to do. And the congregation knows it. They know that this man is not doing what he's supposed to do. But instead of the men and women saying, okay, you're done, they're going to keep him just like this clown that's in office now. He's rotten to the core, but people are afraid of it. Just like a teacher. A teacher could not be a good teacher. But because they love the teacher, they've gotten caught up with the teacher's personality. And so instead of coming and confronting this teacher and saying, you know what, you're not even teaching what you're supposed to teach. But because they've fallen in love with his persona, they're going to let he or her continue to teach instead of saying, it's time for you to go. See, and this is why I like doing this broadcast. You'll call me out, I'll call you out, but in love. But it's always like, let's look at what's the best for us as a people, as a broadcast. Let's do we go back and forth. But in our country, in many instances, certain leaders can do no wrong and the people are afraid of it. And that's why it's like
they let things go. They let ideas go. It's like, okay, I like the person. So his idea, he said this, so I'm going to go with the idea. You're not even looking at the substance of what this person is putting out. And somebody could be wrong. Somebody could be wrong. And we should be able to say that. And we should be able to look at things with a mature mind and say, this is the direction that we need to go. We need to be able to have a mature mind to get together and have these type of discussions with each other. You should be able to go to your family reunion, your Thanksgiving dinner, or whatever it is you go to, your church, and ask these type of discussions.
Of course.
Don't allow them to say, well, race doesn't matter. You know, race. I had somebody tell me, getting into a discussion about religion. He's a Christian pastor. He was like, he brought up a lot of things, and then he told me something about racism, something from the Satan. I'm like, where'd that come from? You know, I'm like, we talking about one thing, so I guess you're looking at me saying I shouldn't be involved in race. You don't understand. I said, you don't understand what racism is. I'm not telling people to hate anybody, and that ain't even what racism is anyway, but that's your mind, because you're going to tell me, he's like, why are you not out here doing this? And like, if you have these type of beliefs, I said, how do you know what I'm doing and what I'm not doing? You don't tune in. If you do tune into this show, you thinking that this is racial. You know, it's racial as far, it's not racism, it's racial as far as fighting racism, but you don't understand. So this is the conversation that many of them don't like to have. It doesn't matter about black and white. So when you hear this type of rhetoric, you have to be able to correct that, or that it does nothing for you as your people.
Exactly. I had a good brother correct me the other day. I was talking to this brother, man, he didn't light into me, but he said, well, Jah, why don't you look at it this way? And I listened to this man. And when he got done talking to me, I said, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely correct. And I said, you know what? I want to give in to what you're saying, because I was hard and I was staunch in a certain idea that I had. But he just explained it to me. And by me just really being open-minded and not thinking I know everything and not trying to think before he thinks. And I'm like, you know what? That's fine. So now I respect that, because I know that I have to do more of that in my life. When someone tells me something for my own good, instead of being defensive and always ready to fight and always throwing my dukes up, listen. And sometimes and if the truth is told and it's put on the table, you have to accept it if you have a heart. If
that's part of growth. You're able to grow, and like I said, the enemy of growth is conformity. You know, you conform into the idea instead of looking at the idea, saying, you know what, to choose. Or I could look at myself, like I said, I looked at myself at first. I was like, yeah, when you said, yeah, this is what the topic is going to be, I'm like, yeah, integration bad. Yeah, integration. And I'm like, wait a minute, but it takes me, and I have to look at myself. Because if I can look at myself, I can look at you.
Right.
You and what you saying, I can sit here and think, and you can't get defensive about, you know what, because you're not agreeing with it, what I'm saying. You know, now it's a fight. You know, it's like, no, well, why are you saying that? And I can respect your intellect, like I said at the beginning of the show. You might even change my mind. You know, that's me being open-minded. Now I'm thinking of all the things I thought about, and I got a conclusion. But then you may have thought about some stuff that I didn't think about. So we got to be able to have conversations. The purpose of our show is for our community to have these conversations. We're not telling you what to think. We're telling you, it's more about how to think. Like think in a form of growth. Think of being a free thinker. Don't get caught up in these corners of saying, well, this is the right way. This is the only way. If you could bring something new to the table.
Yeah, and I like this broadcast too, because we don't, and for those, we say this often, but we're really serious. When we pick our topic, I don't call him, what you gonna say? He doesn't call me, how you gonna say it? We come in, and a lot of times we surprise each other, because sometimes we say what's on our hearts and it's just diametrically opposed. But again, we're giving you different perspectives, and that's what broadcasts and talk shows should be about. It shouldn't be cookie cutters where we say the same thing all the time. Everything you say is great, everything I say is great. That's too carbon copy, and we don't want to be that way. And so what I'm trying to get to again is we have to understand, as I first started off talking, Kev, I started off by talking about what integration cost us. A lot of it didn't have to cost us that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I said, in my mind, I said, I know Jah gonna say this. And I'm gonna say, but what's stopping us now?
Yeah. And that's true. That's true, because see, we don't like to say, well, the bully keeps hitting me, the bully keeps pushing me, and then when you say hit him back, now I got to do something. See,
I mean, it's not going to do no good. That's a sad way to think about things, because I say, like, adversity reveals character. We've shown that we have a lot of character as a people. Integration has shown that we have a lot of growth to do as a people, because that character is gone. We've conformed, and that showed that we was really envious. You know, that's the bad thing to think about us. But it showed that we were envious. If you look at, like I said, the walk on the river, it looks at if you look at a lot of things, the choices that we made as a people, we chose to beg them into our place, into their establishments that didn't want us, that wouldn't put the money in our hand, you know, that wanted to lock the door. The government made you open the door for us. It didn't. So somebody got to make you. You know, it's like I give the analogy of being in high school. You want to be with the in crowd. These people are popular. You go to the lunchroom, the cafeteria, these popular kids, that's why you go sit down next to them and they get up and move to another table. And you keep trying to get up and move with them. They don't want you there. They don't want you around. That's cool. The government's going to make them accept you. But then I'm going to keep that in mind. I'm going to be here regardless. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to remember how you treated me. I will remember that you don't really want me here. So even though I'm going to go play in your league, I'm going to run the ball, shoot the ball, I'm going to get the education that I want, I'm going to keep in mind that you don't really want me here. If that's your attitude, I'm going to look at how you may love me, but I'm going to look at how y'all treat Jah because he's not shooting the ball like I am. You know, he's in the hood and you're going to look at him a certain way. So I'm going to look at you the way you're looking at him and I'm going to judge you on that.
Good practical truth. You know, I think about the brothers and sisters in the 60s, right after the integration, once it started in 64. I think about how they fed us what they wanted to us to know at that time because it was new, it was fresh, and they saw the games that were being played with us. But we never did take it from that to say, okay, yeah, they are playing games with us, but now let's outsmart them. Let's show that we can go into the school system and that we can do the teachers, you know, we can go in as teachers, as a group of teachers, and we see that they're not teaching our children what they should be taught. So we're going to get together as teachers and we're going to teach our children instead of just complaining and bitching about all this all the time. And this is what I'm trying to say, man. We oftentimes as a people, we have this defeatist mentality. And a lot of brothers and sisters in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, they gave it to us, and instead of us saying, yeah, for that time, maybe it was true. But we never looked at it and said, let's take it to another level to say, let's reverse all this negativity that's been done to us. Let's create something positive instead of always complaining about the negativity. That's why when you ask people to do something, we don't want it. No, if you keep telling me, Jah, you're going to hit this bully back. And every time I see you, I'm telling you, no, okay, I'm giving you an excuse. Pretty soon you're going to say, man, I'm not going to waste my time with you.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up something. You sparked something in my mind. The good thing that integration did give us, it was an ability to operate on their playing fields and to show them who we really were, instead of the negativity of thinking that they thought we couldn't compete in the classrooms or
athletics we showed them,
whatever. Right. In the boardrooms, you know, I don't care. In the White House, we showed them that we are just as good, if not better than them. And that was one thing that integration allowed us to do that segregation was not, because they can use the excuse, yeah, but if they played over here, yeah, if they did the Negro League, if they came, they're not playing against our players. When we did, we showed them
they knew
that, yeah, and that's not what they wanted, but that showed us. That should have showed us, and that should show us with our chest out.
Right.
Hey, man, we could compete with anybody if given the opportunity. And like W.E.B. Du Bois said, they're like, you the first black person to graduate from Harvard. And he said, well, they should be honored. That's how that attitude should be. That should be something that we echo, that all of us should know that quote.
Yeah.
You know, not instead of just, I have a dream. There's nothing wrong with that. Right. We should know that saying that they should be honored.
And stop trying to give everything we have to another people, to impress them, to try to be like them, to just, you know, kowtow to them. That's one of the things that now, like when you and I, if we do this show and there's a white audience, I believe with all of my heart, no matter what the subject is, we're going to do the show the way we do it.
Yeah.
But if we get on this show and there's a white audience live today from New York, the Jah and Kev show, and then we got a white audience. Well, Kev, today I think we want to talk about men here. Well, Jah, it's like, see, we're trying to impress them because we don't want them to know that this is how we are. And if we do this show the right way, a lot of them should get up and leave. If we're talking about a crucial issue, they should be angry. They should be emailing the producer saying, them two guys are never coming back, because you got to tell the truth. You can't kowtow, and I'm sick and tired of that. I know we got some comments. What's up?
It was just, so Keen, I appreciate her showing up. She gave the greetings, and that's what we have. And hopefully we'll have a better show for y'all next week. I know my brother, you want to tell them you got a play coming up.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you
to do a show on that.
I was going to ask you in front of my audience. I want to corner them guys. Maybe the next show we can do one on abuse, because that's what the play is about. We can go into some of the details of the play. We can talk about the different types of abuses. Sexual abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, neglect, and we can get into all of that, because that's a subject that we needs to talk about, because that's a subject that a lot of us we sweep under the carpet, as you heard at the symposium.
Right,
a lot of us are hurt.
Yeah, and tell them what the play is. And
sure. The name of the play is called Broken Glass. It's going to be seen August the 30th and the 31st. That's a Saturday and a Sunday from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock both days. It's going to be at the Woodlawn Point Community Center, 702 Donaldson Avenue, San Antonio, Texas, 78201. We'll talk more about it next week, because you come the next week after next, you get your tickets on Eventbrite or anybody in the cast. And we definitely want to have that subject about abuse, because a lot of us don't want to talk about abuse, and we've all been abused in some kind of way.
Right.
So what are we going to do about it?
Yeah. All right. And this is the Jah and Kev show. I appreciate everyone that showed in and tuned in and to have an opportunity. And if not, maybe you could check out the show later on in its entirety. And peace, man. You have anything you want to leave me with?
I'm out.
Man, we didn't have one Facebook person. I wonder if something happened on Facebook.
What happened?
We didn't have one person on Facebook. I don't know if something happened to the show on screen. Like I said, Sakina came on YouTube. We only have one view on YouTube.
What?
So I'm going to go put